tonight.
All right, good. So Austin, you hit the record button? We're good to go. All right, good. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening and for your interest in preserving our waterways and our waterfront. My name is Jack Cardis and I am an associate with Pros Consulting, and I'd like to introduce two people who will be working with us tonight, and that's Cornejo, Park Planner 3, overseeing the waterfront planning project and hosting the chat room tonight, and Austin Hochsteller from Pros Consulting, who will be facilitating the Zoom and polling portion of it. Today our agenda, we're going to give you a little schooling in how the Zoom capabilities will work. So we'll walk you through that. We'll also have an introduction and a review of the Recreation Access Plan criteria, all the things we're looking at doing to accomplish with the plan. We'll be doing then a polling and workshop session, followed by Q&A, and then we'll talk some next steps, and then we'll have you fill out a little survey at the end just to tell us how we did in our presentation tonight. So we are digital in order that we keep you all safe in this terrible COVID-19 pandemic, this new normal of Zoom. So I'm sure most of you are working Zoom from your homes and on other things, but in case you're not, we're going to walk you through a few things here tonight. The first thing we'd like to, if you move your cursor may, your screen may have these designations at the top, or they may be at the bottom. So the first thing you're going to see is the function, that chat. We'll be taking a few polls throughout the presentation, and we'll use this chat function during the polling. In the formal polling part of this, in case you have any questions on the poll itself, this feature will only be available during the polls and will be used to track input from you in the workshop. The raise your hand function, if you do want to speak during this and you'd like to share things verbally with us in the workshop portion, please raise your hand. Then there's the Q&A piece, and this is where you would submit your questions to us. We'll be monitoring it throughout. Any questions or comments you have to make, and we'll be sharing that with everybody verbally as we move along. And just as a friendly reminder, if you have connectivity issues, don't worry, just log back into the session. Should you need to leave the session early for any reason, please be sure to type in whatever questions or comments you had that you were meaning to say if you did get interrupted for any reason. That way, at least we have a record of it. We can share that with other folks, and we'll have a record so that we can react to it as part of the wrap report. So we'd like to start this evening with just a quick view of what your park system is, and your park system is a spectacular one. Miami-Dade County has the third park system in the country, and it serves 2.7 million people at the regional level with all of its regional parks, and at the local level it serves 1.4 million residents that reside in unincorporated Miami-Dade County. You have 270 parks, and then when you count the municipal parks in the other 34 municipalities, you have close to 600 parks in this community, which is spectacular. You know, one of the things that the Miami-Dade Parks Department runs is the marina operations. There are 6 marinas and boat ramps along the eastern seaboard in our Heritage Park system. So that's why we have such a unique interest in them. That and our greenway system as well. For those of you who aren't aware, Miami-Dade County Parks does have a park and open space master plan. This plan was built between 2006 and 2008 and was the product of dozens and dozens of community meetings that were held that helped, just like this, but in person, that helped develop that plan. And in 2008, the Board of County Commissioners unanimously adopted the master plan, and we began implementation using the 2004 bond monies. To build out this master plan, the vision that you all as residents wanted in this community would cost right about $3 billion. So it is a very, very ambitious plan, but it is truly a vision. And as a vision, it's a vision of a connected system of parks and public spaces, not just thinking of parks as single destinations. So it's not only parks, but it's also all of the public spaces and the natural and cultural areas and the greenways and blueways and complete streets that tie it all together. I think one of the best features of it is the greenway, the great greenways and the great blueways that we talk about in this plan. These are where we provide wildlife habitat, scenic vistas, recreation and transportation opportunities that serve to connect parks to each other and to communities throughout the open space corridors and waterways. And probably one of the best things about this community, we are the only county in all of the country to have be bookended by 2 national parks, Everglades National Park to our west and Biscayne National Park to the east. So we have some very, very unique opportunities to connect our system, because the one thing they have in common is water. And so connecting that east, all the activity that we have on the east with our far west reaches and the Everglades is one of the principles and one of the points that we're going to be doing in this plan. So Florida Inland Navigation District has partnered with the Miami-Dade Parks Recreation Open Spaces Department to begin work on the long-awaited Waterfront Recreation Access Plan, or the WRAP as we call it. So when you hear me say WRAP, that's referring to the plan. The intent is to develop a strategic plan that will unify in a single document recommendations for improving public access to the county's waterways while protecting the marine environment and working waterfront businesses, and providing for an increase in recreational and ecotourism opportunities, climate change adaptation, and connectivity to the bay through our transportation, inland canal, and lake systems. That was a big sentence, but there's a lot of things going on in this plan. The WRAP is a transformational document that will inspire and guide our policymakers, public agencies, and elected officials in making the best decisions for our waterways that will include the ideas that you give us this evening. So to that end, an interdisciplinary team of professional planners, environmental engineers, and economists led by the Miami-Dade Parks Planning and Research Division is developing the WRAP. Elements of the planning process include a comprehensive review of all available documents related to waterway management, its protection and governance, along with stakeholder interviews and interactive public engagement workshops like this one to understand what exactly our citizens need and want and expect. As a component of the county's open space master plan, the vision for the WRAP is to provide improved public access to Biscayne Bay and the other waterways of Miami-Dade County in order to encourage residents and visitors to responsibly use, enjoy, and protect these unique natural resources. And to realize this vision, the WRAP has several shared values. The first of which is public access for everyone and more types of users. Whether you own a powerboat or a sailboat, or you fish from a headboat or a fishing pier or on a bridge, or you swim in the bay or an atoll pool, or simply walk along the shoreline, we will emphasize access for economically disadvantaged and create opportunities for the disabled. We will increase opportunities for tourists, residents, school-age children, everyone. When we say access for all, we mean access for all. And then more access for all types of users. We all know we need more public access points for kayaks and paddle boards, for our boat ramps and our marinas, for kite surfing and snorkeling, and simply just fishing and enjoying the great outdoors. Another shared value is responsible use and greater access will promote environmental protection. We know users will demand policies which protect the resources. We also know environmental policies can be more efficient and effective and encourage public participation. Another value is that all of our access points will reflect natural beauty, native and sustainable landscaping and materials, low impact designs, which mean less concrete and more natural solutions. We also know that increased access will grow the economy and increase jobs. Water sports, retail, and entertainment industries will grow. Boating industry will grow, and not only in the sale of boats, but also their maintenance and repair. The boating industry alone is a $12 billion annual economic impact for South Florida. And finally, The RAP will encourage people to get involved and stay involved. This is about citizen stewardship. People want to help, and we will educate the community as to the opportunities to volunteer and take personal responsibility for protecting and reinvigorating our marine environment. So striking the right balance of public access, environmental protection, economic sustainability, climate resilience, these are all the primary challenge for the RAP. Currently, most activity is concentrated near the bay, and this has a profound impact both on the health of the bay and on residents. And as many of you see in the papers recently and have been experienced it yourself with the fish die-off, there are huge impacts that occur on the bay. But a common lament is also that residents live very near to one of the most beautiful water bodies in the world, but due to the inland traffic congestion and other obstacles, they are unable to enjoy the water as frequently as they would like to. So to reduce the impacts on natural resources, new opportunities for waterfront recreation will need to be dispersed throughout the community. When you look at this map, you realize that of the 200 or more permitted marinas that have marina permits with our Department of Environmental Resource Management, they're all along the eastern seaboard. So, you know, by opening up recreational opportunities and water bodies closer to home, we'll relieve pressure on environmentally sensitive lands. We'll reduce our carbon footprint. All those folks that have to drive from West Kendall all the way out to the bay to get to Matheson Hammock Park, think of all the carbon we'll save in those drives if we can activate things in the lake belt or our canal system in a meaningful way. So just think of how many canals and lakes connect the bay and reach all the way to the Everglades. There are three overarching planning concepts that we'll be working from, and the first one is the spectrum of recreational opportunities. The fact of the matter is that nearly 50% of all water users in our community don't involve power boating. The majority, the vast majority, are kayakers, canoers, swimmers, or people that simply walk along the shoreline or fish from a pier or a public bridge. So the average person in our community has a different relationship to the water than the average boater does. But we have to make it all count. So we'll be looking, as you see on the diagram, at the full spectrum, beginning with developing sites that are primitive in nature with access to water, but simply no amenities, to limited access sites that perhaps have a restroom or a concession, to those kinds of network sites that are typically found along the intercoastal waterway that join together into those larger systems, which are the full amenity marinas, where larger groups of people can be accommodated through dockage, parking, concessions, retail, entertainment, and special events. The second concept for planning that we're using is that of compatible or shared use. And this is the key to successful waterfronts. The fact of the matter is land is simply not available, and what is available is plain too expensive for just having single purpose experiences. So we have to maximize that land and maximize that waterfront experience to have multiple benefits. So combining public access points with purpose-specific access points requires careful planning, but has greater efficiency. So think in terms of temporary after-hours docking for residents or visitors in their boats who want to visit a restaurant, and these businesses are closed at night, but we have publicly accessible docking space for them to use. Or all the kayaks and paddleboards and canoe launch areas that might use street ends in their neighborhood that abut the bay or canal system or a lake. And think of all the gas and carbon we're saving by allowing those residents to simply get their kayaks and canoes over to the water in their own neighborhoods. And sharing access with independent fishers for dining and cultural experiences, and seasonal and special event specific loading and offloading for ferry boat and water taxi passengers. The third concept we've all heard about is connectivity. Fully connected and accessible public spaces can also give neighborhoods a unique identity and help create connections through place attachment, which is a strong and emotional bond that people have with their surroundings. An equitable provision of local parks with water access connected to greenways, public transportation, and water taxis is one way to lessen the disparity between the wealthy and the lower income neighborhoods by enhancing neighborhood assets. So the RAP will provide direction for improving public access and creating an interconnected system of publicly accessible waterfront destinations that includes expanded water-based transportation, increasing and enhancing nature-based recreational and ecotourism opportunities, protecting our natural resources and incorporating climate change adaptation along our shorelines, promoting sustainable economics, and mapping the Park and Open Space Master Plan's blueways water trail system. So with that, we're at a point now where I'm going to stop speaking for a minute and we're going to start listening to what you have to say. So I'm going to turn this over to Austin, who's going to start with some polling. So Austin, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack. So we want to make this virtual meeting a little bit interactive. And so we have about 7 polling questions that we want to ask you. And if you're on your computer, you can all take part of this. So what you'll see is I just launched a poll. So there should be a box that appeared somewhere in your screen, if you're on your computer, that basically says, in order to gain a better understanding of infrastructure and operational needs, which of the following categories best describes your main waterfront recreation use type? And these are just simple, single answer, multiple choice questions. And perfect. People are I can see you starting to click already. So perfect. So it's motorized boater, non-motorized boater. Are you a waterfront user / shoreline user, or not really applicable? I do not use or access waterfront areas. And we put in parentheses there some examples of motorized boating. So jet skiing, parasailing, recreational boating, wakeboarding, water skiing, yachting. Non-motorized boating, referring to board sailing, canoeing, dragon boat racing, kayaking, kiteboarding, rowing, scuba diving, stand-up paddleboarding, surfing, windsurfing. And then if you're not associated with watercraft, so you're waterfront user, shoreline user, so using the Baywalk for exercise, sightseeing, wildlife viewing, swimming, fishing, snorkeling, etc. So we'll leave this open for a little bit. I can see how many people we have in the meeting and I can see how many people are voting. So I'll wait just about another 5 seconds and I'll kind of count it down. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. And I'll end the poll and then I'll share the results. So this is how this will work then. So we can see the answers to the surveys right here in real time. So who we have with us tonight, we have about 11 representatives from the non-motorized boater affiliation. Motorized boater is about 7, and equal almost to the waterfront user, shoreline user. So everybody here that has participated in the poll is basically some sort of waterfront user. So thank you very much. So now you understand a little bit about how this works. So we have basically 6 more questions to kind of go through. And so I'm going to launch another one. So this is a question about water bodies that you use most frequently. So when boating or visiting the shoreline and waterfront. So Atlantic Ocean, is it the bay? Is it canals and lakes? Is it intercoastal waterway / the Miami River? And then this is the time where I'm actually going to turn on the chat pod feature. So if you all tried to use it before, you probably couldn't use it. So I'm turning on the chat pod feature and then I'm going to put in here poll water body. So if there's something up here in specifics that you use and you want to type in, feel free to use the chat pod if there's specific things that you want us to take note of that align with these different water bodies that are up here in the poll. Thank you. See, perfect. We're starting to see answers come in, so appreciate that. We'll go about another 5 seconds on the poll. So about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. All right, let's see here. So the majority using the Bay, followed slightly by the Atlantic Ocean. And then we have a couple of representatives from that utilize canals and lakes, and somebody uses the intercoastal waterway. So appreciate it. Thank you for joining us tonight. Perfect. All right, put up the third poll here. So this question is getting at frequency. So we know that things have been different the last several months. And so in a typical month, so start thinking before, the last several months in this summer, really, how frequently do you engage in water activities? And so is it never, occasionally, once a month, once a week, more than once a week? And Lauren, great point. Yes, we did limit it to one answer for some of these questions. We do have a question coming up that is a select multiple, but to your point, yes, we did limit it to one. So thank you. Perfect. We almost have the number. We'll go about another 5 seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. All right. So we have a lot that are once a week and once a month. Those are close ties, and then followed by more than once a week and occasionally. Okay, good. So everybody here is at least representing some sort of use, for the water activity. So perfect. Thank you. All right. Now this is another one where, again, we are limiting this to kind of a one choice. And so you may want to use the chat pod over here to talk a little bit more about different spots that you use. But this is talking about public waterfront and or boat launches in Miami-Dade County that you visit most frequently. So out of this list, and we are limited to 10 choices, what are those that you look at, that you go to frequently? What's your top choice? Black Point, Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, Deering Estate, Downtown Bayside, Hullover, Homestead Bayfront, Miami Riverwalk, Rickenbacker Causeway, South Beach / Ocean Drive. And understood, Robert. Thank you for your comment. Perfect. We'll go about another 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. All right, so Black Point on this list was tied with Rickenbacker. And then, so we have some diverse spread out use for these sites. So thank you. Okay, so this is a question about crowding, and this is a select any that you want. So there's 3 choices up here. And it's please indicate if you have experienced any of the following statements during your boating or waterfront experience in Miami-Dade County in the last year. So have you felt overcrowding during your experience where either you put the boat in the water or where you access the waterfront? Have you had to change launch sites to another site or relocated to a different waterfront as a direct result of overcrowding? Have you just changed plans entirely as a direct result of overcrowding? And thank you for the comments in the chat pod. Yes, there are other boat ramps and other public access points that didn't make it into that last chart because, like we said, we had a limit of 10 choices, but those specifics, that's why we have the chat pod open so we can gather more information about that. So thank you for your input. Okay, we almost have everybody. So about another 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. All right, so felt overcrowding. So at least the majority have felt overcrowding, and then followed very closely by changing plans entirely as a direct result of overcrowding. And then some changing the actual launch sites due to overcrowding. And then correct, as Lisa pointed out in the chat pod, some is none of the above. Perfect. All right. So along the kind of same vein is looking at a little bit of a willingness to travel. So this is a single answer question. So how far would you travel to launch your boat or visit the shoreline waterfront if your preferred location, if your preferred ramp or your shoreline waterfront was overcrowded? Would you be willing to travel maybe less than 10 miles away, maybe somewhere between 10 miles and 20 miles, greater than or equal to 20 miles, or you know what, none, I would not travel to a different location. All right, we'll go about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. All right. So less than 10 miles away, followed then by, oh, greater than or equal to 20 miles away. Okay. So a little bit of a disparity there between, you know, a short distance, but then kind of a longer distance. Okay. And then greater than 10 miles, but less than 20 miles. And then a few folks, none, I would not travel to a different location. Okay. And then our last question here for this round is about safety. So considering your waterfront you use the most, so think about the place that you go to most often, or you would like to go to most often. How safe do you feel the surrounding waterway area is? So safe can refer to the degree of boat debris in the water. It could be related to the facilities like deteriorating or broken boat ramps, or maybe even people in the water, such as boater sobriety, or, you know, just kind of a pedestrian sobriety, rules and regulation enforcement. So these are just some examples of what safe can refer to. So thinking about your access and your location, where is it that you would say? Is it very unsafe, somewhat unsafe? Are you kind of indifferent or neutral, somewhat safe, or would, in your opinion, very safe? Go about another 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. So, okay, so the majority is somewhat safe to very safe, a couple indifferent, and then, yeah, several somewhat unsafe to very safe. And one of the comments in the comment box is about water quality being questionable. And that was something that came up on Tuesday's discussion too, about, you know, does water quality, is that an indication of safety as well? And that's something that, you know, for some folks is synonymous. So thank you for putting that into the comment pod, because that is the, we've heard that some of that before too. So thank you. All right. And there's Pop. Perfect. Okay. And Jack, that's the end of the polling.
Good. Thank you, Austin. And thank you everybody for doing the polling. That's going to help us immensely. So let's move on to the workshop session. Want to go over a few ground rules with you just real quick. We ask that you please be respectful and courteous of each other as we go through the process here. Be as creative as you can in your suggestions. We will have 2 questions that we will focus on. We'll spend about 15 minutes on each of the questions. And through our Q&A feature and through the discussion. So as a reminder, we do have, first off, we have the chat feature. This feature will be used to track input and ideas from you in the workshop. We'd appreciate your ability to provide concise and timely comments as we're moving along. We have the raise your hand function, so please use this feature if you want to verbally say something on the record here. Please remember that others may wish to speak as well, so be, you know, concise and don't take up too much time on it. And if you need more time, please use the Q&A. And this is where most of the folks did on Tuesday night, the Q&A. The Q&A will be constantly monitored, and we will be sharing that. Stephanie and Austin will be sharing that with us. So, so these are, you know, very, very important. Even if we don't get to all of those comments, we will have the record of them. So let's go to what we need to talk about, which is what barriers exist that keep you from enjoying Biscayne Bay and the waterfront, and if there are any solutions you want to suggest. But we want to know, what are the barriers that keep you from accessing it? Is it a matter of distance? Is it a matter of overcrowding? Are there just simply no access points anywhere in your neighborhood? So we'd like to know what that is. So we're going to open it up, and Stephanie and Austin will facilitate this portion.
Great. So on the Q&A, we have a question from John. What is going to be done about the annual pass parking permit that we lost 2 months ago?
Is that a parking pass that was for the Miami-Dade County boat ramps?
He replied annual pass. And John, just a friendly reminder, you're welcome to add to the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, then we can have you speak vocally, that you're welcome to do that as well. But
Yeah,
John
and
clarified annual pass and he paid yearly.
yeah, and I'm not familiar with why that annual pass, how we lost it or why it was lost. So Stephanie, that's something that we'll have to check with the department, with operations unit, and see if we can find out. I wasn't aware that there was any kind of just interruption in that area.
And John has raised his hand. So John, I'm going to allow you to talk here. So now all you do is unmute your microphone or your phone, and then the floor is yours.
Yes, I'm talking about the yearly pass that is paid yearly to be able to park your trailer and your truck at the boat ramps. That's something that's paid every year, and I feel like I've lost 2 months of something I was supposed to be given 12 months for.
Oh, so I see what you're saying. So because everything was closed down because of the pandemic,
Yes.
got it. Okay. So if you haven't heard from the department, my understanding, because I've sat on a couple of those committees for the reopening, I believe there is going to be a plan for either extending those and adding those 2 months you lost. There has been discussion about making sure that you are made whole on those sorts of things. So we will follow up with that, and maybe Stephanie, we can respond to John and get him some information tomorrow when the operations folks are available. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. And then during that time, we've had some folks in the chat pod. So we're talking about barriers is the question. So mangroves planted along the shoreline block the view and also walk-in access. So now we're talking about landscaping, some of the vegetation, actual barriers from access. Overcrowding and boater ethics have been mentioned. Oversaturation of the marinas. Too many tailored boats for the occupancy of the marinas is the follow-up to that comment. Safety concerns. So this is getting back to kind of that polling question that we had earlier. Jet skis in the water, high speed, no respect of wake zones. So kind of the rules and regulation enforcements from that standpoint. No police control. Not safe to be out kayaking, paddling. So that's the motorized kind of the non-motorized and waterfront kind of use conflict there.
Okay.
Needing more walk-in access for paddle boarders and kayaks in Coconut Grove, so specific areas. And then one of the questions actually is, do the mangroves have a function since they were planted? Jennifer, if you can add that to the Q&A pod too, so we can capture it that way, that would be great. But I don't know if Jack, you have an answer to that right now. Is the mangroves having a function since they were planted?
Well, yeah, the mangroves are the key stabilization piece for a natural shoreline stabilization in of our ecosystem. So not only that, but they provide the nutrients and a place for the flora and the fauna to survive and to thrive. So the mangrove is an essential part of the natural environment and the natural habitat. They do need to be protected, but we have received comments in focus groups and on Tuesday about trimming in certain areas at access points because they have become overgrown. And so we will have to, we just have to make sure that they are trimmed properly by people with the right arborist permits who are trained and permitted to cut them, because they are regulated and endangered.
Perfect. Okay. And then also riprap or armoring make it dangerous to walk into the bay. A comment specific to Homestead Bayfront Bay Park. They removed the shoreline fishing areas and forced people to fish from unsafe rocky areas. So talking about actual specific locations at sites.
And that was at Homestead Bayfront?
Homestead Bayfront, correct.
Okay.
Another one for riprap shorelines make it impossible to beach a small craft. Oh, here's one from Daniel about access points. So not enough access points to the water. Many parks along the bay, but without legal access to the water for kayaking, paddling, and that's a key tenet to this water recreation access plan that we're doing. And Jack could talk more about this, but the actual sheer number of GIS work that's going into this plan and identifying potential locations for increasing access is something that we definitely are doing as part of this plan.
Absolutely. And anybody can type in the chat pod. I like that somebody said Coconut Grove needs more of those. Tell us specifically where you'd like to see them or where an opportunity exists. We have mapped over 1,500 street ends in this community that have access to the water. Not all of them are viable as locations. So we are winnowing those down. We have now got just about 200 sites that are presenting opportunities that we need to further look at to whether they can be permitted or not. So any concrete suggestions of actual locations, we'll get that mapped in the GIS.
Perfect. And then we also have dependency on other family members and friends with boats. So some of the alternative actions are beach walks and visits, kayaking, causeway drives, etc. Kind of a detailed list here. Insufficient access points, which we just talked about, but for non-motorized watercraft specifically. Mm-hmm. And then there's too much trash floating in the waterways or trapped in the mangroves. Water quality is poor, etc. Let's see here. Somebody asked the question, is there a way to get real-time information of the marina launching availability? So
there is, in fact, and there is a text message system that each of the parks at the boat ramps has if you're launching from a county marina. So if you could make sure we cite that person's name so we can get them that information, Stephanie, we can have Tommy send them that information tomorrow so they'll know. But there is a system for that.
Perfect.
And I do have a couple open questions to share on the Q&A. Thank you to those who typed in there for your patience. Eugenio remarked that parking across Mast Academy closed on the northeast.
Oh. Did I freeze? Technical difficulties?
Yeah, I was
sorry about that.
Yeah, it was a technical
My apology. I'm sorry about that. Thank you for your patience. I don't know what happened there. But just going back to Maria's comment, to perhaps Monday and Thursday, so results come in on Friday. A lot of activity happens during the weekend, but water quality samples are taken on Monday, both in Biscayne Bay, rivers, and Atlantic Ocean. Additionally, Madeline had shared Biscayne Bay, a problem in Biscayne Bay, distance and always crowded, solution and attendant or a full lot sign. And we have a few more comments in the Q&A. Maria expounded also, is it possible to restrict boaters inside the Alita River? Have seen many boaters and jet skis speeding around manatees and rays. Additionally, Oscar asked, has pros considered adding striping to the ramp area to help guide boaters line up their trailers when launching or retrieving? And I have one more, actually a couple more questions here. Maria also asked, is it possible to extend hours of police enforcement or conservation officers from sunrise to sunset?
Yeah, I couldn't possibly remember all those questions, so either we do it one at a time or so you tell me how you want to handle, or we have people's names and we get them the responses later. Stephanie, that's what would you like?
I think we'll definitely do kind of a little bit of both. Those that we don't know the answer to, we'll follow up after the meeting.
So you want to throw a quick question? Give me one of the questions. Just start from somewhere and I'll rattle them off as quick as I can.
Is it possible to extend hours of police enforcement, conservation officers to be from sunrise to sunset?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a budgetary answer that will have to come from operations, whether or not they've got the funding to keep the police officers at the boat ramps. And again, whether or not the actual agencies themselves, while on the water, have the funding to extend their hours.
Next one, has pros considered adding striping to the ramp area to help guide boaters line up their trailers when launching or retrieving?
Yeah, yes, they're, if anybody has been by Pelican Harbor, I know Pelican Harbor was recently relayed out. It came out very beautifully. So that is the goal for all of them. There are flooding problems at some of them, like Matheson Hammock, which is one of our first sites that we've done our studies for climate change. We know that those all need to be elevated, the drainage change and restriped. So there is a list of capital improvements for the county marinas.
Is it possible to restrict boaters inside the Alito River?
I would say power boaters. Is that what the issue is? Or is
Yes,
it
this person has seen many boaters and jet skis speeding around manatees and rays.
in the Oleta River? Yeah, I don't know the jurisdiction there, but I know it's going to be state waters. FWC has that, but I don't know that there are any restrictions at this point in time, because it does connect to Mall Lake there by East Grenolds, and runs directly into the intercoastal waterway. So it may be tough, because they may be launching at the Blue Marlin on 163rd Street there or something. So, or behind a house.
Next question, in terms of water sampling and water qualities, can water quality sampling be conducted twice a week? Currently, it's at 1 week.
Yeah, did we have somebody that responded to that, that said that told us when they were? I mean, I think that's department, whether that's Department of Health or Environmental Resource Management is doing that. We can ask and give that information to them that was a request. I'm sure it's being tested daily right now with the kind of activity that's happening out there with the fish kill. So.
And then parking across Mast Academy closed on the northeast end of Virginia Key. What is the rationale? Right now, it lumps dozens of people on top of each other on weekends and reduces social distancing.
We're going to have to get that answer from Tom. I don't know what the operational issues are there. Let me, if I could, I'm going to just put another question up on the screen here, just so we have it. What transformational opportunities might you recommend? And I know I don't want to stop you all from doing the questions and typing in, but if there are some out of the box ideas that you have, what would they be? If it's, boaters, we more artificial reefs, more anchorages, more launching facilities. Is there, boater safety? If they're landlubber, is there, walking, fishing, swimming, entertainment, or retail things that you might suggest more of, or those locations? So we're looking for those transformational ideas from you.
And again, please feel free to utilize the chat pod to start writing in some of those transformational opportunities. And if you would like to have the floor to say a few words, please use the raise your hand symbol, and then I will call on you and enable your microphone. So then you could provide us your comments. Or if you have general questions, by all means, please continue to use the Q&A pod. And if we don't get to your question live or be able to read your response live in the chat pod, just know that everything is recorded and we are combining everything post this meeting. So everything that you're typing will be recorded.
Yep. So if you were king or queen for the day and you could pull any lever you wanted with water access, what would it be and what would it look like?
So we have a couple comments coming in, Jack. The first one is expand access or use of Miami Beach Rowing Center. And that's kind of a question too, because I think it's one of those ideas that we're throwing out there that maybe is a potential opportunity.
So that's up on Indian Creek, I'm assuming. Okay.
We'll see. Another one is launch facilities in Coral Gables. And then correct, yes, the Miami Beach Rowing Center, yes, correct, Jack, to where you said.
Okay. Good, because I know there are plans that that I've seen from Miami Beach. So I know they're working on those. So, okay.
Sure.
Facilities at Coral Gables.
Yep, launch facilities in Coral Gables, and then more garbage removal from canals, so specific to canals. More launching facilities. There is an area around Palmetto Bay, so another point of interest there, Palmetto Bay.
Okay.
Here's an idea about, so really when we talk about opportunities, it really starts with water quality being promoted. And because without that, all other ideas may be of little use. So really starting to try to talk about the crux of the water quality.
Yeah.
The beach on either side of Bears Cut Bridge used to be open to the public. It was closed off from public use some years ago due to fencing. And so there's actually a question about, can the fencing be removed to allow public access to that public land? So this is a question about access to lands.
Is that access for fishing, or is it access for the swimming that used to occur there?
So Elvis, that's a question back to you. If you could type in beach and swimming.
So both. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm familiar with the area. Yeah, I don't know of any plans, but that's a good comment, and I'm going to assume that Elvis wants that. So we'll put that on the list of things to do. Just jumping back to Coral Gables, yes, there is we have that lined up as one of the planning sites for it. Just like we talked about the other day at Snapper Creek behind Dadeland Mall, where the Ludlam Trail joins the Underline, is a beautiful location with wide right-of-ways on the South Florida Water Management Canal banks. So those are perfect spots for launching and creating that. So thank you for pointing that out on Coral Gables as well.
Perfect. More public launching ramps, which again, we've addressed that's going to be a big part of this study. You can put posts in canals and indicate distances where to turn to get to the bay. Great point about wayfinding, especially for blueways and kind of river trails. It's the same thing for paved pathways. Wayfinding is huge in signage. So thank you for that. Mm-hmm. Any chances in future installations of functional and aesthetically pleasing artificial reefs closer to shore within swimming distance on beaches such as Hallover Park and South Beach? So specific to those two locations and talking about artificial reefs.
Yep, no, those are great ideas, because places like Crandon, where it's shallow, there is some opportunities with some deeper areas. Hollover's a surf beach. It might be a little tougher establishing it closer to shore where the surf is rougher. But these are good ideas, and maybe even in, the jetty will be extended at Hallover so that it is equal to or longer than the Bal Harbor side. So that will create some lagoon space inside. So there are going to be some snorkeling opportunities perhaps in that area as well as fishing. So
perfect.
Great. Let's jump to some Q&A. We have 8 open questions. All right, so one of our participants asked, are there any plans to build more boat ramps or expand Matheson Hammock Park boat ramps?
We are identifying land right now. We know we're looking in the area of Chapman Field, also looking in the, there is the, it's in, the old FP&L property where that substation was between the Deering Estate. Some of these things are all on. I know that land is in litigation right now, but we are looking along the shoreline for wherever we can. And if we can expand Homestead Bayfront and Black Point, there are some opportunities there with some potential opportunities for expansion, especially with parking. Might take the parking all the way over to the foot of the solid waste management land there at the foot of Mount Trashmore, but land. Mm-hmm.
Next question we have, are any chances in future installations of functional and aesthetically pleasing artificial reefs closer to shore within swimming distance on beaches such as Hallover and South Beach?
Yep, we have that one, and we will be identifying those kinds of locations, and certainly on the bay as well. So not only on the ocean side, there are artificial reefs that people aren't even aware of along the Juliet Tuttle Causeway and other areas. and the Durham folks have a whole host of areas that they would like to reestablish with either artificial reef or seagrass plantings and things like that, that will definitely stimulate the flora and fauna.
Mhm. Another question we received is the beach on either side of the Bear Cut Bridge used to be open to the public. It was closed off for public for some years ago with fencing. Can that fencing be removed to allow public access to that public land?
Right. Yeah, we got that from Elvis earlier. So yeah, we're going to check it out. We're going to see what it is. I know there was it was probably fenced off because of liability issues and drowning or two. Bear Cut can have a current that can run pretty wide open in that area. So, but it is a land, and it could be used for launching or fishing if swimming is not able to be reestablished because it can't be guarded or it's unsafe.
Another question we received is there a plan for a kayak launch in Ruth Bryan Owen Park Waterway? It's off of Bird Road near the Biltmore Hotel. They wish it was easier to launch their kayak from there.
Thank you for telling us. Ruth Bryan Waterway by the, can you get me an address so I can get this into GIS? If you can get me a street address, boulevard and street, or avenue and street, that would be very helpful.
Great. And then a couple more questions on the Q&A. Can Crandon Park stay open till 10 or 11 p.m. as it did years ago? Night beach parties were wonderful.
I'll bet they were.
And additionally, we have another comment on more of the canals. Aquaneat, which is 53.8%, I may butcher it, so forgive me, glyphosate, aka Roundup, is being used in the canals to kill the weeds. I understand that the main function of the canal is to be Miami's flood control system, but there are other substances could be used instead of Roundup. That goes into the water table, and many people live on the canal system. So that's a good observation, and we'll take note of that. And additionally, we have another question on public access. Can public parking / access be allowed to the shoreline on either side of the Julia Tuttle Causeway? I know that that's FDOT controlled. I know in the past they've denied that that access. I'm not sure if they're going to ever revisit it, but I hope so.
But that is on the list, just so everybody knows, because we have that as an access point, and we are exploring that to see whether or not that it will be a viable option in the future. So good, thank you, Stephanie, on that one.
We do have a couple other questions, and I will follow up with them directly after the meeting.
Okay, I was going to say, because we're getting close on time, so we're be respectful of everybody's time here. So let's forge ahead, since we've got a good record of everybody's input. That was really good, everyone. Thank you so much for that. So I think our next one was actually, let's see. All right, why is there we go. So we did our Q&A, so we're going to jump over to public survey. We want to make sure that just because you served on this, great input, everybody, but we also need you to take the survey. So we'd like you to jump over, and if you go to miamidade.gov and navigate your way to the Park and Recreation page, you're going to find that survey. You don't need to do it right now because we need your attention for the rest of this meeting, but please, at the end of this or tomorrow, and encourage your friends to do it. We have it, the survey will be open until September 20th. It'll take about 15 to 20 minutes to complete, but we need your input, because there is detail in there that will be very helpful, especially for mapping the future of what these waterways will look like. We have one more virtual workshop, and that's going to be Wednesday, September 2nd, same time, same place. You're welcome to come again, but please share that with your friends. Let them know that they should come on, and especially if they've got interest in certain areas and they can identify things for us. That'll be very, very, very helpful for us to do that. We will probably have, our goal is to have this report back to the public sometime after the first of the year. we will be in the data gathering phase until later in the month of September. We begin actually to work on the report itself in October, and knowing how the drafts will go back and forth. So we will have that for you then. And I think now we're going to jump to a little workshop survey on what we did to tell us how we did. So I'm going to turn that back over to Austin and Stephanie. So go ahead, Austin.
Perfect. And so everybody remembers the polling that we did at the beginning of this this meeting. And so right now we have a poll up here on the screen, and you'll see that there are 3 questions this time. And so I'm going to put into the chat pod a meeting evaluation, because we're asking 3 different questions. So one is overall, you're satisfied with the way the meeting was conducted on a scale of strongly disagree all the way up to strongly agree. Second question is about engagement. And so we are in a virtual environment, so trying to do this virtually is what we're implementing here. So overall, you found the meeting engaging, strongly disagree up to strongly agree. And then the third one is a multiple choice. So how would you improve this meeting? Like Jack says, we have another one next week. And so we're always needing to learn so we can improve some things. So this is a select all. So you can select more than one. And if you do select other, please type in the chat pod what some of those suggestions you have so we can have them recorded. But some of those choices are, I would like to see more time for discussion. The information was too technical. Maybe the audio visual connection should be approved. I think we saw that today, that we had a little glitch there, so we'll work on that. Other is a choice. So again, if you answer other, please type into the chat pod what some of those other improvements you would like to see is. And then, or NA, do not have any feedback to improve the meeting, that's fine too. I'm not going to share these results because we're trying to keep these anonymous. But then again, if you have chose other, please go ahead and start putting it into the chat pod. So perfect. Thank you for the first comment that came rolling in. So narrow the geographic areas, you have a deeper discussion. Yep, absolutely. Appreciate it. Thank you. And so we're almost to the number of people polling. So I'm going to have this open for another 5 seconds. So 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much for participating in that. Like I said, I'm not going to share that. We're just going to keep that anonymous. But thank you very much for that information. So back to you, Jack.
Well, and we're going to wrap it up now, and we just want to thank you for your feedback. If you have any questions or feedback or comments that you haven't put in here, or as you're driving tomorrow and all of a sudden it dawns on you, I should have said this. Stephanie, her email is here. Please write that down. If she can't get you the answer, she will route it to the right person within the Parks Department or the right government official to help get that answer for you. Please stay connected with us. Follow us on Facebook or on Twitter and the Miami-Dade Parks page. We will be, we are available, and we look forward to delivering a wonderful report for you and a wonderful plan of action for the future of our waterways and our waterfront. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and we'll say good night. Bye, everyone.